It's open. Fire escape is right outside.
I'm a sucker for good atmosphere, and there's honestly a lot that I'm apt to forgive or even overlook entirely if a game manages to immerse me into its world or get me to care about its story and characters. It doesn't even have to be all of the world or story. Sometimes all it takes is one single moment or interaction to make me more invested in the overall experience. Take, for example, Prey 2017 and its use of diegetic music. The offices you explore are often equipped with speakers that can be turned on to play this relaxing ambient music. It makes sense within the setting of the game that the company provided the equipment to help manage the stress of its employees. But more importantly, it has the intended effect on you, the player.
Good afternoon, Talos. Safety aboard Talos 1 is everyone's responsibility. Send all help requests or concerns to security@transstars.talos.
Prey can be a very stressful game with multiple objectives and threats to manage at any moment, so occasionally I would just chill in an area I had already cleared and listen to this music. We're talking here about a very well-made game with many other significant strengths that no doubt took more effort to implement correctly. But for whatever reason, this little feature of relaxing diegetic music has remained one of my favorite memories of Prey 2017. It's often the little, simple things that create engagement when consistently and thoughtfully implemented. Gemini Rue is a very solid and, in some ways, innovative point-and-click adventure. It also has a beautifully realized setting, a mysterious plot, and some fascinating characters. I have an especially soft spot for Blade Runner-esque vibes, and Gemini Rue gives these through its gentle noir jazz tunes, rain-drenched locations, and the generally melancholic mood of the writing and dialogue. It also reminds me a bit of Firefly in the lore of the universe and the fact that your small crew fly around in a spaceship. The story is mostly split into two timelines, each focusing on a different main character, and you are sometimes able to switch between the two at will. In one instance, you play as an inmate of a correctional facility just trying to get your bearings and understand what is expected of you. Your memories have been wiped, and it is clear that not everyone around you can be equally trusted. Your main goal quickly becomes escaping the prison, and many of the puzzles have to do with understanding the structure of the facility and finding a way to circumvent its security systems. The puzzles have an almost immersive sim-like quality with multiple logically connected components. Take, for example, the way you manage to steal a gun from the shooting range. If you don't want the solution to this puzzle spoiled, please skip to the timestamp on screen. Okay, so you must first inspect the gun to find out how much it weighs. You then need to acquire an item of equal weight to swap for the real thing, as the weight sensors on the pedestal operate the lock on the training room door. And where can you find items of precise weight? In the prison gym, of course. Once you swap the right weight for the gun, you are able to leave the range with the gun in your pocket. But a second security checkpoint will detect that you are holding an unauthorized object and won't let you proceed until you deposit said item into a container. What you need to do is get a screwdriver from the maintenance room, naturally, so that you can open one of the vents and drop the gun down before moving through the scanner. However, your gun will get stuck in the vents on different floors, requiring you to manually push open the flaps blocking the way. First, you will need to go down to the gym floor and ask one of your bulkier mates to move the correct shelf unit out of the way so that you can access the right vent and, using a pipe you detached from the inside of your toilet tank, reach inside the opening and dislodge the gun from the choke point. You will then need to ask one of your female inmates to let you into the women's living quarters so that you can access the vents on that floor. A quick note on these last two steps. I like the way you get people to do things for you in this game. Assuming you are on good terms and they have agreed to help you through dialogue, all you need to do is right-click on them and left-click on any object in the environment that you'd like them to interact with. But going back to the puzzle, you need to finally retrieve the gun from the right pipe in the maintenance room. You reach the pipe by manually pushing a box in the right spot and getting on top of it. A lot of the puzzles rely on this type of concrete, sensible logic, and you often end up consistently applying the same tools to similar jobs. Even the verb list produces a very concrete, literal application of the tool you selected. Selecting foot, for example, allows you to kick down doors or people, step onto ledges or cracks in the wall, push or reach things you don't want to or cannot touch with your hands, and so on. If interacting with your hands is what's needed, you will need to select the hand icon. If you want to speak to someone behind the door, you need to speak to the door, and so on. The game is pretty particular about these things, and I personally found this and the overall puzzle design refreshingly more logically consistent than the typical zaniness of many older point-and-click adventures. In the second timeline, you play as an ex-assassin turned cop who is trying to find his long-lost brother. Your search leads you to uncovering a much deeper conspiracy, and your own personal journey becomes something with greater implications. Much of this timeline is spent gathering clues from conversations, information terminals, and objects, and so on. A cool feature here is your communicator, which functions effectively as a smartphone, allowing you to keep track of important notes and objectives, as well as contact people relevant to your investigation. You can often also just call your partner Kane to ask for assistance when you're stuck, making for a nice diegetic hint system. The data you have in your communicator can also be entered into information terminals in order to uncover more details on a particular topic or to find new leads. You can also just type directly in the search bar any keywords or information you might have come across in the game world, giving a more open-ended, realistic feeling to your role-playing as a detective. Speaking of open-ended, certain problems will have alternate solutions, and often even wrong approaches will be fully animated or visually accounted for, so to speak. I felt this was a really cool way to help you understand which part of the puzzle might have gone wrong and how to fix it. It also helps with overall immersion. There is also a cover-based combat system that I know some people hated, but I found it to be relatively well implemented, especially considering it's part of a point-and-click experience. It's largely based on reading your opponent's rhythm and trying to fake them out with your positioning while anticipating theirs. You can also score headshots if you get really precise with the timings. I thought it had just enough depth to keep it challenging, but not so much that it becomes a frustrating chore. Scavenging for ammo is also a thing, and you can totally end up dead by running out of ammo at the wrong time. Dying is also generally a possibility, and it will occur in a number of ways, but luckily the game autosaves before such instances, so you'll never end up losing too much progress. There is also some clunkiness to the way you interact with your items. As far as I can tell, you are unable to just open your inventory. You must interact with something in the world first, which then brings up the verb list and inventory screen. You can then choose to simply use an item on its own with no apparent relation to whatever you happen to have clicked on in the world. Strange, but honestly not a massive inconvenience once I got used to it. If you are a fan of sci-fi and point-and-click adventures, then this game is a must. I would even recommend it to people who, like myself, have had a love-hate relation with the genre. Gemini Rue is refreshingly free of the silly moon logic of old adventure games and instead offers a far more sensible approach to investigation and puzzle solving. It really does occasionally feel like a deconstructed slice of an immersive sim. The writing has an overall more serious, contemplative tone with just enough lighthearted, humorous moments sprinkled throughout. In addition to being a cool sci-fi mystery, it's also a light philosophical meditation on the foundations of our identity, conscience, and moral character. These themes aren't explored in any true depth, but their presence makes the story more meaningful and relatable. It's also worth noting that this game was primarily developed by a single individual, and while that did result in some lower fidelity elements such as the animations, it also allowed the game to follow a very clear, unified vision for both gameplay and story.